Hey, it's Dr. Sherry for part 3 of the high performance videos. Now, the first one we talked about was gaining clarity. The second one was generating energy. Now, what is the third? Ooh, the suspense. So the third wraps up the final 3 of the 6 because each of the two, so there's 6 total. The first 3 have to do with your person. They're more of internal things. The next 3 are actually going to be more social, and they're going to be more related to relationships with other people and how you interact with other people. But the third of these internal ones is this: raising necessity. All high performers have this drive, this internal drive to whatever it is that they are trying to accomplish. A drive for success, whatever that means to you. The success is different, means different things to different people. But it is this burning, insatiable necessity. You know, if you ask them, why are you doing what you're doing? They're going to tell you, basically, in a nutshell, because I have to. And it's not the kind of because I have to that your kids will say when you're like, why do you keep your room clean? Because I have to. No, that is an external pressure that's requiring necessity that isn't necessarily enjoyable or isn't necessarily owned on the inside. When we're talking necessity, usually a big piece of it is internal necessity. So let me differentiate. There is external, applied necessity, and there's internal necessity. So let me use one example and demonstrate the difference between the two. Now, both necessities can absolutely work in tandem to help with high performance. But the external is not as long lasting and is not as critical as the internal. So, making money at a job. So imagine that somebody is making $5,000 at a job a month. Their external necessity might be the fact that they have kids at home and a wife or a spouse where they've got to put the bread on the table. They've got to feed their family. That's an external necessity. They have to pay the mortgage payment or they're not going to have a place to live. They got to make the car payment or they're not going to be able to have a car to drive to the job, which then pays the bills. These are all external necessities. Now, they can be important drivers in one's life, but they're not as important, not as deep and as critical as internal drivers. So the internal drivers one might have for that same job is a sense of accomplishment because the job that they're doing they feel is really important. Or maybe the sense of pride and sense of owning their role as a parent, and they love the fact that they can provide for their kids. So it's no longer an external pressure, it's an internal perspective, an internal role as a parent that they are fulfilling and feeling fulfilled in doing. That now has flipped the switch to be kind of that internal necessity. Internal necessity is often based around how one views oneself and how they view their character. Now, the reason I say this is because a lot of times when you talk with a true high performer, they will tell you the reason that they're doing what they're doing is because it is consistent with their values of being, the best that they can be, of not being lazy, not being not lacking in contribution to the world. It's almost like they say, well, why wouldn't I do this? Because I'm, I need to be my best. I need to grow. They just almost assume that that's the way the world works, and everybody works that way. that's when you know that you've really hit the internal necessity and the internal motivators. But the reality is not all the world works that way. That's why not everybody's a high performer. So the cool thing is that you can actually cultivate this. If you don't have a lot of internal necessity, you can actually cultivate it, but recognize the external necessity first, because that can be sufficient to get you going, but you want to switch the motivation, the necessity, the sense of necessity over time from being more external to being less external and more internal. So these are things you can cultivate and be aware of over time. That is the third habit, the third piece of high performance. Again, we have seeking clarity, we have generating energy, and we have increasing necessity. Ooh, so what are the last three? You're gonna need to watch to find out. See you in the next one.